drone attack pushes Sudan, Ethiopia closer to conflict. Analysts warn Sudan's civil war and Ethiopia's internal conflicts could engulf region. Since Sudan's civil war began in 2023, there has been widespread fear that prolonged fighting could spill across its borders and spark broader conflict in the Horn of Africa. In early May, a barrage of drone strikes hit Khartoum's airport and upended what had been a burgeoning sense of normalcy in the Sudanese capital. The drones targeted civilian terminals and struck a radar and an air defense system just 1 week after 300 citizens returned on the first international flight since the war began. The episode marks a dangerous escalation in what has become one of the world's most tangled regional proxy conflicts. Sudan expert El-Fadil Ibrahim wrote in a May 5th analysis for the Arab weekly newspaper. Sudan's 3-year civil war between the SAF, Sudanese Armed Forces, and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, has steadily drawn in outside powers, each pursuing its own agenda. In a May 5th news conference, the SAF accused Ethiopia of committing a direct act of aggression against Sudan. Technical teams analyzed the aircraft's data and communicated with the manufacturer, which confirmed that the drone, bearing serial number S88, is owned by the United Arab Emirates, Sudan's Foreign Affairs Ministry wrote in a statement. It also confirmed that the drone was operated from within Ethiopian territory, specifically from Bahir Dar Airport. In issuing a denial on the same day, Ethiopia accused the SAF of giving weapons and money to Tigrayan mercenaries and thereby facilitating their incursions along Ethiopia's western frontier. There is ample and credible evidence showing that Sudan is serving as a hub for various anti-Ethiopian forces, the statement read. It is evident that these hostile actions, as well as the recent and earlier series of allegations by officials of Sudanese armed forces, are undertaken at the behest of external patrons seeking to advance their own nefarious agenda. Experts believe the mention of external patrons was a thinly veiled reference to Egypt, which is the SAF's biggest supporter. The intensifying war of words points to the intertwined complexities of Sudan's war and Ethiopia's internal and regional conflicts. As Prime Minister of landlocked Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed has rattled neighbors Eritrea and Somalia with threats of gaining access to the Red Sea by force. In western Ethiopia, his grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam project triggered a war of words with Egypt over control of the Nile River. For years after the Tigray War, which killed an estimated 600,000 people, the Ethiopian government has accused Eritrea of supporting and coordinating with the Tigray People's Liberation Front, a paramilitary group. Ethiopian federal forces also are fighting militias in 2 other semi-autonomous regions, Amhara and Oromia. While the governments of Egypt, Eritrea, and Sudan continue to forge closer ties, some analysts caution against describing their growing partnership as an anti-Ethiopia bloc. The term bloc may be too rigid for the realities of the Horn of Africa. Jonas Yaizu, a researcher at Horn Review, told the Africa Report for a June 9th article. What appears to be emerging is not a formal alliance, but a convergent system in which different actors increasingly find themselves aligned around overlapping strategic concerns regarding Ethiopia's growing regional influence. Crisis Group Horn of Africa Director Alan Boswell warned that Sudan's accusation against Ethiopia marks a dangerous turn in an already destabilized region. Both countries are facing massive internal challenges, and essentially, both sides now see the other as supporting their armed opponents, he told Al Jazeera, adding that the heightened tension creates a very dangerous dynamic and risks making their own internal challenges much worse. On May 7th, the SAF responded to the drone attacks by announcing that it had bolstered its positions in the East Galabat, Basunda, and Al-Fashaga regions of Gadaref state bordering Ethiopia. The main trigger really is just that this war in Sudan just continues to escalate with no clear off-ramp, Boswell said, and it is really starting to tear apart the Horn of Africa region. Al-Shabaab has issued a lengthy condemnation of Somaliland President Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi Yiro over the opening of Somaliland's embassy in Jerusalem. accusing him of abandoning Islam and urging residents of Somaliland to resist his administration as reactions to expanding Israel-Somaliland ties continue from both the militant group and Somalia's federal government. In a statement distributed through affiliated online media channels, the group criticized Somaliland's deepening ties with Israel after Israel recognized the breakaway region late last year. Al-Shabaab said subsequent agreements covered security cooperation, joint coordination, and acceptance of the Abraham Accords, which it described as uniting crusaders, Jews, and apostates. A stinging rebuke from Al-Shabaab. The group focused particularly on Eritrea's decision to open Somaliland's embassy in Jerusalem, saying it regarded the move as recognition of the city as Israel's capital. Today, 6 months after that disgraceful recognition, which was obtained at the price of abandoning Islam and loyalty to Muslims, we see the leader of this apostate entity becoming the first person associated with Muslim Somalia to openly and shamelessly declare Jerusalem the capital of the occupying Jews, at a time when even some crusader states have hesitated to take such a step, the statement said. Addressing Muslims worldwide, especially Palestinians and residents of Gaza, Al-Shabaab said Somaliland's leadership did not represent the Somali people. This shameful act, this degraded conduct, and what this apostate entity and its leaders loyal to disbelievers have done by openly violating our true religion and the rights of Muslims, through their alliance with the warring Jews, the opening of an embassy in the occupied holy city of Jerusalem, and their obedience to the Zionists, does not under any circumstances represent the authentic Muslim Somali people, the group said. A softer tone but firm message. The statement was notably less threatening than Al-Shabaab's earlier rhetoric after Israel recognized Somaliland last year, when the group warned it would carry out attacks if Somaliland allowed an Israeli military presence on its territory. However, the group still urged the people of Somaliland to oppose the administration, saying President Eritrea had abandoned the religion of Islam and has manifested clear disbelief. It is not permissible to obey him or submit to his administration. Rather, Muslims are obligated to struggle against him and defend their religion and dignity, the statement said. Al-Shabaab further warned Somaliland residents against religious scholars whom it accused of trying to justify cooperation with Jews and Christians, arguing that the Somaliland administration had no legitimate authority over Muslims living in the region. Federal government's stern warning. The statement came a day after President Eritrea cut the ribbon on Somaliland's embassy in Jerusalem, the territory's first diplomatic mission abroad and the 8th foreign mission to be opened in the city. The development has heightened a growing dispute between Mogadishu and Tel Aviv over Israel's engagement with Somaliland. Somalia's federal government on Tuesday said it reserved the right to take all necessary measures against Israel over its dealings with Somaliland, which it said violated Somalia's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and unity. The government called on the United Nations, the African Union, and the wider international community to condemn what it described as actions undermining Somalia's internationally recognized borders. President Mohammed, recognition a trap. The latest developments follow remarks last week by Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, who said Israel had not granted Somaliland genuine recognition, but was instead pursuing its own security interests. He described Israel's recognition as one of the darkest days in Somalia's history, and said Mogadishu had considered using force, but ultimately chose dialogue and persuasion. Somaliland did not secure recognition and will not secure recognition. What it received was not recognition at all, but a trap laid by Israel, he said. Jerusalem's religious significance. A large part of Al-Shabaab's statement focused on Jerusalem's religious importance in Islam. The group described the city as Muslims' first Qibla, the site of the Prophet Muhammad's night journey, and the location of Islam's third holiest mosque. Expressing support for the Palestinian cause, Al-Shabaab said Somalis would continue to stand with Palestinians in their struggle against Israel and repeated its long-standing slogan, Jerusalem will not be Judaized. The dispute over Israel-Somaliland relations has quickly become one of the most contentious diplomatic issues in the Horn of Africa, drawing responses from governments, militant groups, and international observers as debate continues over the implications of Somaliland's expanding international engagement and its relationship with Israel.